Learning a language is not only about memorizing words or grammar rules. True fluency grows when language is connected to meaning, emotion, and human experience. This is why stories, especially stories of faith, are powerful tools for learning English. Biblical tales, passed down for thousands of years, are rich in narrative, reflection, and universal values. When used for language learning, they create a calm, meaningful environment where English feels natural instead of forced. Biblical stories are often written in clear, rhythmic language. They repeat ideas, use simple sentence structures, and rely on familiar actions such as walking, speaking, listening, waiting, trusting, and forgiving. These elements make them ideal for English learners. You hear the same verbs, emotions, and moral choices again and again, which helps your brain absorb English patterns without pressure. Another reason these stories help fluency is their emotional depth. Language sticks better when we feel something. When a story speaks about hope during hardship, patience during waiting, or courage in fear, learners connect emotionally. This emotional connection helps vocabulary stay in memory longer and makes listening easier. Instead of translating every word, learners begin to understand meaning naturally through context. Biblical tales also encourage slow, reflective listening. They are not rushed. Many stories unfold gently, allowing learners time to process each sentence. This supports calm listening skills, which are essential for real fluency. In real conversations, understanding tone, intention, and emotion matters just as much as understanding words. Faith-based stories naturally train these skills. From a language perspective, biblical narratives introduce useful everyday English, expressions of time, cause and effect, dialogue, advice, and reflection. Phrases like, in those days, after this, he said, she answered, and it came to pass, help learners recognize storytelling structures. These patterns are still used in modern English storytelling, conversations, and writing. Importantly, these stories are not only religious texts, they are human stories about families, leaders, mistakes, forgiveness, journeys, and growth. Even learners who are not religious can benefit from them because the themes are universal. English learned through meaningful content feels purposeful, not mechanical. By listening to or reading biblical tales in English, learners begin to think in English instead of translating word by word. They start to feel the rhythm of the language. This is where fluency begins, not in perfection, but in understanding and connection. To gain real fluency from biblical stories, the goal is not speed, but depth. Slow reading and listening help learners notice sentence structure, tone, and meaning. Start by choosing short stories or passages written in clear English. Read or listen once for general understanding without stopping. Let the story flow naturally. Next, return to the same story and focus on key sentences. Notice how ideas are connected. Pay attention to verbs, especially those describing actions and emotions. Words like trust, fear, hope, wait, follow, and forgive appear often. These words are highly useful in everyday English conversation and writing. Listening aloud is especially powerful. When you hear biblical stories read slowly, your ear adjusts to natural English rhythm. This improves pronunciation, stress, and intonation. Try repeating short sentences after listening. Do not aim for perfection, aim for clarity and confidence. Another effective method is reflection. After finishing a story, pause and summarize it in simple English. Ask yourself, what happened? What did the characters feel? What lesson does the story teach? Answering these questions, even with basic sentences, helps transform passive understanding into active fluency. Story-based learning also builds speaking confidence. Because the content is familiar and meaningful, learners feel safer expressing ideas. You can retell a story in your own words, describe a character's decision, or connect the lesson to modern life. This mirrors how English is used in real conversations, sharing stories, reflections, and opinions. Writing is another strong practice. After reading a biblical tale, write a short reflection in English. It does not need to be long, even one paragraph is enough. Writing helps organize thoughts and reinforces vocabulary naturally learned from the story. Over time, learners notice that English becomes less tiring. Sentences come more easily. Listening feels calmer. This is because stories train the brain to process language in meaningful chunks instead of isolated words. Biblical tales are especially effective because they balance simplicity with depth. Fluency is not about speaking fast or using complex words. It is about understanding, expressing meaning, and feeling comfortable in the language. Stories of faith support this process gently. They teach English while also offering wisdom, patience, and reflection, qualities that make learning sustainable. When English is learned through stories that touch the heart, fluency becomes a journey, not a struggle. Biblical tales remind us that language, like faith, grows step by step through listening, understanding, and trust. One of the most powerful features of biblical stories is their focus on moral choice. Characters often face difficult decisions, whether to act with honesty, patience, courage, or compassion. These moments are described in clear, thoughtful language, making them excellent material for English learners who want to understand how English expresses values and inner conflict. When learners follow a character who is afraid but chooses faith, or confused but chooses patience, They encounter English used to describe emotions and reasoning. Phrases such as he wondered, she hesitated, they were afraid, or he trusted appear frequently. These expressions are essential for real life English, where people often talk about feelings, uncertainty, and decision making. Unlike modern fast paced media, biblical narratives move slowly. They allow learners to stay with one moment, one thought, one emotion. This slowness is a gift for fluency. It gives learners time to process language without stress. Instead of rushing to the next sentence, the learner can feel how English flows from one idea to another. These stories also teach cause and effect in a natural way. Actions lead to consequences, and those consequences are explained calmly. This helps learners understand how English connects ideas using words like because, so, therefore, and as a result. These connectors are vital for speaking clearly and logically. Another benefit is dialogue. Biblical stories often include direct speech. Characters speak simply and clearly. Dialogue helps learners understand how English sounds in conversation, even in formal or reflective contexts. Sentences are often short, meaningful, and emotionally rich. Listening to this type of English improves comprehension and prepares learners for real communication. Learners can practice by reading dialogue aloud, changing tone to match emotion. This builds pronunciation skills and emotional awareness in English. Over time, learners begin to speak more naturally, with better rhythm and confidence. Most importantly, these stories remind learners that struggle is part of growth. Just as characters grow through challenges, language learners also grow through patience and persistence. English learned through faith-based stories becomes more than a skill. It becomes part of a personal journey. Fluency does not appear suddenly. It develops quietly over time through repeated exposure to meaningful language. Biblical stories are ideal for long-term English practice because they can be revisited again and again, each time with deeper understanding. At first, a learner may only understand the main idea of a story. Later, the same story reveals new vocabulary, subtle emotions, and deeper meaning. This layered learning strengthens fluency naturally. The learner does not feel bored because the story continues to offer insight and reflection. Listening regularly is key. Even 10 to 15 minutes a day of slow, clear storytelling can transform English ability over months. Consistency matters more than intensity. Hearing English daily trains the ear and reduces fear. The language begins to feel familiar, almost comforting. Another effective technique is shadowing, listening and quietly repeating sentences at the same time. Biblical stories work well for this because the pace is steady and the language is clear. Shadowing improves pronunciation, sentence flow, and confidence without pressure. Discussion is also valuable. Learners can talk about the meaning of a story, agree or disagree with a character's decision, or relate the lesson to modern life. This practice mirrors real English use, sharing opinions, reflecting, and connecting ideas. Teachers and content creators can use biblical tales to create gentle learning environments. Instead of focusing on mistakes, they can focus on meaning. Learners feel safe to speak because the stories themselves are calm and respectful. Over time, learners notice that English becomes part of their thinking. They no longer translate every sentence. They understand tone, intention, and emotion. This is true fluency, not perfect grammar, but real understanding. Stories of faith teach patience, trust, and reflection. These qualities support language learning deeply. When English is learned through meaningful stories, the process feels human, not mechanical. Biblical tales remind learners that growth happens step by step. Just as faith develops through listening and reflection, English fluency grows through calm exposure, meaningful practice, and time.